Welcome to GNV On The Move, a half-hour program showcasing the City of Gainesville's initiatives, programs, events, and people. I'm your host, Jennifer Smart. This is an exciting time for Gainesville as we strive to create a community that is equitable, sustainable, resilient, and a great place to live and experience. We are a city on the move. In this episode, we'll have a conversation with Housing and Community Development Director Corey Harris. We discussed city programs that work to revitalize neighborhoods and increase affordable housing opportunities for both owners and renters in Gainesville. We'll update you on city initiatives addressing pedestrian safety, gun violence prevention, and services to assist neighbors experiencing homelessness. But first, here is my conversation with Gainesville's District 3 Commissioner, Casey Willits. We discussed his commitment to parks and recreation, public transit, and multifamily housing. Casey Willits was elected to the Gainesville City Commission in 2022. He's focused on improving and expanding the city's park system, increasing options for multifamily housing while protecting the rights of apartment dwellers and renters, and strengthening our public transit system. Commissioner Willits, welcome to GNV On The Move.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. First, let's go a little bit into your background. Tell me a little bit about you and how you ended up wanting to be on the Gainesville City Commission.
So perhaps by happenstance, I fell into activism early in college days and just always stayed active. I worked in LGBTQ rights, civil rights across the South with state organizations, and eventually into progressive electoral campaigns across the South and in other states as well. And when I came to Gainesville, it became natural for me to be involved here. And I just kept on getting involved and staying involved with campaigns and elections and races and following issues that were happening at the city and county level. And when a position kind of opened up and there was redistricting, it made sense for me to step forward. I thought it'd be years and years and years before I might consider running for office. But stranger things happened and there was an opportunity. And I knew that there were important issues that I wanted to be a part of, and I was afraid no one else would cover. So I stepped in.
And this is something I've noticed about you while you are on the dais having your conversations there with the commissioners. You have a very unique voice. You're the one who's speaking up about things like multifamily housing. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are, about who your constituents are, and why this is so important to you.
Yeah, so for I think definitely majority of my adult life, I've lived in multifamily housing. Here in Gainesville, I've lived in multifamily housing for I think 8 years. Or some form of housing where there's multiple units on one parcel. And so it's my experience here in town and elsewhere. And so I was a renter until just 3 years ago. So as opposed to a lot of people who get involved in politics who have perhaps a full family and multiple earners, a single earner, a renter, which is far more common in a city that has lots of young people and students, but also working class people who rent for many years of their life before they can get to a position to own. So my district in Southwest Gainesville, District 3, is probably 90% multifamily. Overall in the city, we're roughly 60% renters. So my interest was both personal, but my constituents, my district, it's where we find a lot of our rental housing, our multifamily housing. So it's natural for me to gravitate towards those issues because I see them. I've knocked on all of those doors in those neighborhoods over the years with political campaigns. And I think it's important to have a voice who really focuses in on that, because otherwise it's too easy for people in elected office who tend to come slightly older, slightly wealthier, well-credentialed, well-degreed, and well-propertied to understand and remember back. It's hard for them to remember back when they were perhaps, a 25-year-old needing an apartment or needing a place to live. It's just a long time away, both in years, but also in their personal economics. It's a long time away. I feel like I'm a little closer to that, and so I really focus on making sure that people who live in multifamily housing and people who are renters have someone who looks after them and injects that into kind of every conversation.
And you do a really great job of that. And I've heard you talk about fire assessment fees, and are they fair? I've heard you talk about solid waste fees, and are they fair? So tell me about some of these things that are really like pocketbook issues that matter to the people who are in your district.
So I think a lot of times for renters, everything's lumped into one big rent fee. They're used to one big fee. And people don't realize everything that goes into that, what makes an apartment complex, possible. Someone's got to pay property taxes on it. Someone has to pay fire assessment. Someone pays the solid waste, how to take it away. It's usually in a contract, but the individual renter doesn't. Fire assessment is an issue where we changed the formula a couple years ago. I didn't support that change because it overall was a net shift of burden from single individual dwelling units to multifamily. And in a town like Gainesville, we know that shifting of some of that burden, tax or fee burden, really shifts it to people who are younger on average, people who are less wealthy on average, people who are more likely to be people of color on average. And so when we change things to renters or to multifamily, it has racial impacts, it has socioeconomic impacts. And I didn't support that move, and I've argued against it again, but that's one of the examples that I want a whole commission and a community to be aware of when we make things that don't look like it's kind of targeted or going to impact one person. Solid waste fee as well, or recycling, let's say, in our zero waste plan. If we focus on a lot of our effort that we want to reduce our waste stream, and let's say we want to start with our household scraps, what people think of as composting. If we focus first on multifamily instead of individual dwelling units, we're really trying to get a lot of our goals out of people who are already renting, who are more likely to be on lower income or students or young or working class. And so I want the commission and the whole city to be aware of that when we make these decisions, we know that can have a disparate impact racially and socioeconomically.
And public transit, sort of the same argument that you've made. We've had a lot of discussion over the past year about RTS and route changes, elimination of routes. You're a rider of RTS, and you can speak up about this issue as someone who actually experiences being on our buses.
Yeah, so for the past 2 years, I've been a weekly rider. The 3 years before that, I was a daily, 5 days a week to get to work. Since I work at UF, the buses, most of them run to UF at some point. And so it was my transportation system to and from work. It still is at least once a week and sometimes a second day a week. And in my district, a lot of those buses run. A lot of the buses that go from campus to a lot of our apartment communities and to some of the commerce along Archer Road as well. RTS, as our viewers will know, RTS is a complicated system of the partners who bring in different assets. And one of the things that UF brings is a very large portion of our budget, but not all of it. They bring a majority of our riders, but not a majority of the dollars. But the city brings in a lot of grants for the buses and bus shelters and bus stops. And so how we interact with UF, what UF wants out of the system, it's a balance because we want to make sure a lot of my constituents in Southwest Gainesville can get to campus and other places. And so looking forward, we have routes that potentially could be kind of combined that are on, where you have multiple routes on the same street, perhaps going in slightly different directions. And some of those will be a challenge to riders in the future, but UF has an interest in making sure that they have short waits between buses and gets everyone to campus. So we work with UF. Our Department of Transportation works with UF really closely and other stakeholders to make sure we get the most out of it. And my big focus is to make sure that those buses in Southwest Gainesville really get students and other working class people to our big commercial and educational centers.
Do you feel that it puts you in an interesting position where you're part of the UF organization and also part of the city organization?
I will say, some people think that politicians all have something personal at stake. Well, yes, I do. I ride the bus, so I need it to be efficient and quick and easy, and I need it to be safe, and I need it to help get me out of my car more often. So I do have a real personal stake in making sure that RTS, serves my district because I've lived in my district, and gets students and staff to UF. And I also have some experience to bring to people who perhaps the last time they rode a bus was 20 years ago when they were in college. So I can bring a little experience of our current buses, how it works, to remind people and to advocate and to be an extra set of eyes on our buses, so that when changes happen, someone on the commission actually sees them and can provide some feedback.
You are a skilled advocate for these issues that are important to you, and so I would be remiss if I didn't touch on a park for Southwest Gainesville, which you have been so very diligently promoting your entire time on the commission. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so it's everyone loves parks, and almost no one disagrees with more, better funded. Everyone loves parks, but there's always a limited budget. I ran on a promise of a park in Southwest Gainesville, not just because everyone likes it, but because I looked at the maps, and I love maps, I'm very interested, and I realized something was wrong. The parks weren't equally spread out across Gainesville. And the big kind of hole, the gap, is in Southwest Gainesville. So I realized this is something that someone from Southwest Gainesville needed to fight for. And since I've been on the commission, we've gotten more and more data to suggest that kind of my gut feelings were not wrong. They came from somewhere. So we have expert study that shows with data and geographic information systems analysis that there really is a hole in Southwest Gainesville. Our master parks plan from over 10 years ago had already identified it as a need. And then we have this extra layer of data that says people in my district are on average further away from all types of parks they might need to go to, but particularly either a neighborhood or community scale, community size park. And not just that my average person in my district is on average further away, but specifically Black, Latino, or Hispanic and Asian residents in Southwest Gainesville are further away from a park than the average white person in the city, and even their fellow Black, Hispanic, or Asian counterparts in other districts, in the other 3 districts. So literally, when I talk about needing a park in Southwest Gainesville to fill in a hole, it's not just feel good, it's not just something extra. It's probably the best way we can bring parks equitably to people based on race, for sure, but probably also other socioeconomic factors, like them being renters or being working class and low income. So it's something I want to see happen, and it's a long-term process. We have some funds from Wild Spaces Public Places that the voters gave us permission to spend. They said, let's tax us for those parks, and getting it moved sooner than later, where it's a big moving process.
You were also the force behind naming Abby Wambach Park. So you've really been in touch with a lot of city departments about how to move forward really in the whole park system holistically and make it more appealing and better for all of Gainesville. Yeah,
I took an interest partially because when I first came in, we were doing some renovations to what was Forest Park, what is now Abby Wambach Park. It really is the city's soccer park. And so it really needed a name that was associated with soccer so that people would know, oh yeah, that's the soccer park, Abby Wambach being of UF fame and World Cup and Olympic gold medal fame. But these moving pieces, we had money early on for that park, but the next moving piece for me is making sure a new park in Southwest Gainesville perhaps gets moved from fiscal year 27 to fiscal year 26 to ensure that the funds get spent now. Staff is looking at spaces, they're talking to different landowners. The whole commission understands it's one of my priorities, and they at least have it on our near-term work plan, but moving it up, securing it is a slightly different question. So I continue to bring the impetus for it and convince the other commissioners that this is important and that we need to do it sooner than later, particularly if there's an opportunity that opens up for us to get the land. The parks planners will tell us exactly what needs to go in that park to achieve all of our goals and dreams of our residents as from some of our studies. But I know that geographically, if we're committed to bringing services equitably to all people in Gainesville, we cannot do that without a park, an extra park, a new park in Southwest Gainesville.
Very well said. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen.
After the break, we'll share a conversation with Housing and Community Development Director Corey Harris. We focused on the city's efforts to expand housing availability and create a more equitable community through programs like down payment assistance and homeowner workshops. But first, here is an update on steps the City of Gainesville is taking to address issues facing communities across the country.
The City of Gainesville works closely with state and local partners and public safety agencies toward a Vision Zero goal, that is, to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries in the city by 2040. Recently, the city was recognized by the Vision Zero Network as a Vision Zero community, one of a select few in Florida and across the nation. The Vision Zero community designation reflects Gainesville's commitment to the Vision Zero goal by prioritizing roadway safety for all users. The Residences at Oakview is a local apartment community directly impacted by gun violence. The Prodigy Tech Club was started by youth at Oakview to combine their love of gaming with online learning and hands-on projects. With support from Impact GNV, the city's initiative to end gun violence through community-based partnerships, the club's resources expanded from just 2 computers to 10 laptops, plus a smartboard and STEM and robotics kits. The club's now able to serve up to 36 youth 5 days a week. The city's new Downtown Ambassador program launched in December 2024 to improve the safety, attractiveness, and cleanliness of downtown. In its first 2 months, ambassadors removed 780 pieces of graffiti, helped 102 drivers who needed assistance, and hauled away 119 bags of trash. The ambassadors also complement the city's homeless support services by connecting houseless neighbors with area service providers.
In the City of Gainesville, we believe in second chances. Introducing the Fair Chance Hiring Ordinance, a step towards creating a more inclusive and thriving community. Our Fair Chance Hiring Ordinance aims to reduce recidivism, decrease unemployment rates, and promote successful reintegration. We understand that denying employment opportunities based on criminal history not relevant to the job under consideration is unjust and harms our community. Under this ordinance, employers are prohibited from making statements in job postings or recruitment materials that automatically disqualify applicants based on criminal history. We're leveling the playing field by preventing employers from asking about or considering an individual's criminal history until after making a conditional employment offer. An employer covered by the ordinance must perform an individualized assessment before denying employment based on criminal history. We believe in providing a fair chance for everyone to succeed. Join us in creating a stronger, more inclusive Gainesville. For more information about the Fair Chance Hiring Ordinance, visit our website at gainesville.fl.gov/fairchancehiring. Together, we can build a brighter future for all.
Corey Harris joined the City of Gainesville in 2022 as its senior housing strategist. He has since been promoted to Director of Housing and Community Development. In addition to improving housing affordability and access, this department also offers a variety of programs to assist residents with housing rehab and down payment assistance, to name just a few. Corey, welcome to GNV On The Move.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you here. And why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you landed with the city?
So I was quite fortunate to work with a local nonprofit affordable housing development organization, Neighborhood Housing and Development Corporation, where I spent 14 years prior to joining the city. And we provided services around, preparing individuals for home ownership as well as doing direct development. One of the highlights of my career so far has been the development of a 62-unit apartment complex called Deer Creek Senior Housing. So in partnership with another development entity, NHDC was able to produce their first multifamily project.
So you're talking about partners, and this is something we were discussing before we even came here to the set, that the partners are really essential to making all this work.
Yeah, I like to say that, when you have partners, those can be your best friends. And no matter what we have as far as the total investment, we always need partners to leverage the dollars that we have. So we rely on our partners like Habitat for Humanities, Neighborhood Housing and Development Corporation, our housing authorities, both the City of Gainesville Housing Authority and Alachua County Housing Authority, as well as some of our other partners like Bright Community Trust, which is a new partner to the area, as well as some of our other partners like Rebuilding Together that focus on housing preservation activities.
Bright Community Trust is one that has been pretty exciting over the past year because they completed their first house. There was a ribbon cutting, this home that's near Depot Park, really centrally located, and then also will be kept affordable for families. So explain to us a little bit how the trust system works.
Yeah, so Bright Community Trust runs a community land trust, which is a shared equity model. Which allows individuals to become homeowners, but also share in the equity that's realized over time. And so it keeps the house affordable over time. So if someone moves in, they can stay in for a number of years. And really, I oftentimes like to say that this Bright Community Trust or the Community Land Trust is really that interim step between renting a home and fee simple real estate, which most people come to realize, where you can build wealth through the shared equity model to ultimately utilize that to invest in a fee simple real estate transaction.
So basically what it means is the house is going to be sold at a more affordable price point, and it's going to go to a family that qualifies financially for this sort of support.
Yes, and so that family will then be able to stay in the house, and then once that, because oftentimes what happens is when we put subsidy into an affordable housing development project, once you do it one time, that subsidy then goes away, and then it becomes unaffordable. With the community land trust model, that property will remain affordable, so that caps the amount that someone would purchase it the second and third time around. So it's really a great opportunity for our community.
I also am thinking about the people that this helps. So I'm guessing we're talking a wide array of people, all different walks of life, all different professions, ages. Who are some of the clients that you work with in housing and community development?
So school teachers, firefighters, police officers, to name a few. Single moms, single dads in some instances, low-income families. So we're extremely fortunate to be able to partner with those individuals and help them realize the American dream, which is home ownership.
And then down payment assistance. This is a program you're doing that's really beneficial to those folks who want to make that jump from apartment living to homeowner.
Yeah, so Jen, we offer a monthly home buyers education training seminar. And so we can walk individuals through the housing process or the home buying process. And so with that, with a lot of the down payment assistance programs, they require some form of education. And by taking this course, you fulfill that educational requirement for the down payment assistance. So, we have a number of down payment assistance programs, whether we're utilizing home funding or SHIP and ARPA money for DPA. So it's a great opportunity for people to gain the information to become homeowners and to help them navigate the home buying process, but also provide them with that assistance to be able to come up with that initial investment. Because oftentimes we find that most people have trouble with that initial investment to becoming a homeowner.
Of course, because you're trying to save your money, but the cost of living is high, and it's really hard to get that lump sum together. And so the educational piece, is it about budgeting, about how to handle a mortgage, that kind of information?
Good question. So it's about not only budgeting, but it's also about credit and how to maintain your credit, how to maintain a home, what repairs you should plan for even once you become a homeowner. So it's like not only pre-purchase housing counseling, but it also has some post-housing components as well. So once you get into the home, what things you should be looking for, how to manage your housing finances once you become a homeowner, realizing that those repairs are now your responsibility. And so it's a great opportunity for people to gain that knowledge.
This is an excellent point, because you put all your money into buying the house, and what do you do if something breaks?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we try to help people understand that, in 20 to 25 years, they're probably going to have to replace a roof. So you need to have, some reserve set aside for that. 10 to 15 years, appliances need to be replaced. And so, again, we try to go over that post-purchase maintenance as well as preparing individuals to walk into home ownership. And I'll say this about our home buyer education. I mentioned a lot of the post-purchase type of training, but also it navigates or help walk people through the home buying process. So from securing their financing by going to a lender, what information a lender is looking for, to what's down payment, what's closing costs, defining the nuances between the two, as well as the importance of getting a home inspection. Making sure that you have a professional home inspector that's going to come in and look at the various systems of the house, make sure it's in proper working condition. And shopping for insurance is another thing that we cover. Applying for a homestead exemption. So these are all things that we want to cover, or these are all things that we cover in our home buyers education class.
Right, all really necessary. So all the nuts and bolts really of being a first-time homeowner are covered, and you get support from beginning to end. And then you also have some home rehabilitation and repair programs on offer.
Yeah, so we have our housing preservation activities. Not only do we provide preservation activities around rehabilitation, but we also have mortgage foreclosure intervention. So someone that's struggling to make a mortgage payment, that lives, of course, in the city limits of Gainesville, they could come to us and see if there's some support that we can provide. Typically, that's up to $7,500 to offset their delinquency. But with the homeownership preservation or the rehabilitation program, we actually have 3 buckets within our rehabilitation program. One is a roof replacement. So someone can come to us and say, hey, I just need my roof replaced. and we can help support them there by partnering with a roofing contractor to get their roof replaced. We also have our major rehabilitation program, which we give them a budget of roughly about $80,000, and we look at the major systems of the house. You know, the roofing system, the HVAC system, plumbing and electrical and accessibility, and we design a plan to rehabilitate the house so they can live out their years in that home. And we also, in some instances, we have a house replacement program. So let's say our rehab specialist goes in and we determine that it's more cost effective to demo and do reconstruction or new construction. We also do that as well. So there'll probably be about 4 or 5 candidates a year for that program as well.
It's an excellent program. And so for people who may be watching, what is the best way for them to reach out and access some of this support?
Another great question. They can come into the Thomas Center. So we're over at Thomas Center B, second floor, Housing and Community Development, or they can apply online. So they can go directly to the city's website, navigate through and find Housing and Community Development, and complete an online application through our client management system called Neighborly.
And then somebody gets back in touch with what the next steps would be.
Yes, so we communicate either by phone or through email, and they can always just give anyone in our department a call.
Wonderful. Great information, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this glimpse of the many exciting projects going on in Gainesville. We leave you now with a look at the city's Mobility on Demand service. These shuttles go door to door in East Gainesville to transport passengers who can't walk to an RTS bus stop or need additional support to reach their destinations reliably and affordably. Join us again next month as we take another look at GNV On The Move.
The City of Gainesville and RTS came up with Mobility on Demand on the east side to take people from their home to their destination and back. It's fare-free. In this zone, during the hours of 5:30 to 8:30 a.m. and in the afternoon from 3:30 until 8 p.m. The need that we found is people live further than 1/8 of a mile, and that's a big barrier to bus stops. We're trying to get people around to their appointments, their work, their school, and this is a way to supplement our fixed route service.
I love it because it drops me off. I can even get to work a little bit earlier and I can get a lot of my stuff done that I need to get done.
Some of the locations we serve is UF Health Urgent Care Center Eastside, Alachua County Health Department, Red Cone Park, Walmart on Waldo Road, Rosa Parks Transfer Station, Eastside High School, and Lofton High School. With our app, RTS Connect, you could schedule the same day, or you could schedule a ride at least 60 minutes apart. If you're using the phone, 393-RIDE, you have to schedule the day before. This is going to be the future of transportation.